You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, a semi-weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your host, Steph, on Wednesday mornings to chat about seasons, Sabbats, and all new witchcraft topics to help you make your life more magical.
Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. I'm Steph, and I have a great guest here with me today who you have heard from before, but it has been a while. And she has a new Oracle deck to talk about, so I'm going to turn it over so she can introduce herself and let you know where you can find her online.
Hi, this is Judika Illes, and I am the author of numerous books. Most people know me from the Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells. I am also an editor of Wiser Books, and you can find my website needs some repair, but it is kind of working. But you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on what I still call Twitter, and I'm just happy to be here, Steph.
I am so happy to chat with you again. We mentioned this before the last time that you were on. I have the Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells behind me in every YouTube video I film, and I get so many questions about it all the time. And I'm like, it's the best. Everyone check it out. And I talked about that last time too, but still love it. Still use it all the time. It's fantastic.
Well, that's the thing. Books are timeless. I mean, I think music potentially also the best music. Uh, Films, I watch films that are now, close to 100 years old. We read old books. And I mean, 5,000 Spells is about 20 years old. But especially if you're any kind of an esotericist or an occultist, we're still reading books that were published centuries ago. So I do love that timelessness.
Me too. And, when you've got 5,000 spells, you're never going to read it in one sitting anyway. So it's just something, to come back to. And every time that I open it and like looking for something new, I'm like, I swear I have never seen this one before. Despite having owned this book for years, this is new to me. So it's
When I
fantastic.
was writing it, my editor, and it was written 2003, 2004-ish. I don't even remember sometimes. But my editor told me, he said, don't be insulted, but people are not going to read this book in full. They're going to open it up and read some and close it. And the funny thing is I get email from people who tell me they have read it. And they, as they're writing to me and we're communicating, clearly they have read it, not in one go, but cover to cover. And it's just, it's very humbling.
That's amazing. Wow. I love that. I'm one of those that I like focus on the section that I need at the time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
even though I feel like I've gone through every section at this point, I still like when I go back to something, I'm like, this wasn't in here last time. No, I'm convinced. It always finds me what I need at every
That
time.
is a book that thankfully has an index because there's a flip
You need
side
it.
to that. Things disappear. You find something, and people show me their books. For people who are not familiar, it's a 1,000+ page book, and so people show me their books, and they've color coded them with sticky notes, and there's all sorts of stuff because you find something, and if the ebook, it's very easy to search by word, but otherwise you really need the index because you might find something, and then a year later you think, oh, I need that spell, and it's like, how do you find it?
Yeah. Like, what section was that again?
Huh?
I know.
Right, because it's not always obvious.
Right. I think that's part of the fun and part of the
Yeah,
magic of it.
yeah. And it's supposed to be, they're spells, it's supposed to be mysterious.
Well, I am very excited to chat about that you have a new Oracle deck out.
Right,
That's
right, right.
that is a lot of fun. So let's
Oh,
chat
it's
about that.
amazing. 2025, I woke up and I was a deck creator. It's like it makes me very, very happy. This new deck, the Magic Spells Oracle deck, is actually I worked with the team who did. I have written four encyclopedias, and two of them were with HarperCollins UK. That was the team that produced the book, and I am back with the team, not the exact individual people, because people go and work different places, but still a Harper Custom team for this that worked on 5,000 spells. And you'll see the cover of this deck looks a little like the original cover of 5,000 spells. And it is, I love the freedom of Oracle decks. You can use these as an Oracle deck. There's a book in there with some suggested spreads, so you can use it that way. People have been telling me they've been picking a card every day, but it's also maybe a good primer or introduction or extra extra opportunity to learn magic and be magical. It's divided into the equivalent of suits of the four elements. And I mean, even as I was writing it, it made me look at things differently. It made me want to write a book on elemental magic. But it was very insightful for me to write, and I am not the artist, but I worked with a team to come up with the images, and I hope it will be insightful and fun and magical for other people too.
I love that. And if you do write a book on elemental magic, I'm going to be here for that as well. So if that's on your
Well,
list.
it's funny because people have been telling me how much they like the elemental aspect of this deck, because that was their intro, their portal, their gateway into the magical arts. And it wasn't for me. That wasn't my gateway. Although it's something that you cannot ignore. It is a intrinsic part of any kind of a magical or witchcraft practice. So this, my editor really wanted to do it this way. And anytime you're working with a publisher, there's a collaborative aspect. And so she really made me think and see things in a different way. And I hope that's in the cards. And it did make me want to write a book on, I mean, ironically, the original title of 5,000 Spells is the Element Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells, but Element naming the publisher at that time. But it was a very, very, I don't want to say life-changing, but maybe thought-provoking. And sometimes you see things differently. Working on this made me see things differently. And that's good.
I do think that a lot of witches, like you said, start in that elemental practice. It's such a like a basic and a foundation.
Yeah,
And I find myself like if I am a little burnt out or can't figure out, what's going on, how I'm feeling, that's one of those basics that I can always go back to. And I feel very like grounded and comfortable, like just focusing on the elemental aspects like of a spell or just like being out in nature in general.
sure.
So I think that you're right, that it is just like this baseline that we kind of all understand, but then sometimes we get bogged down in like details and we start throwing in, astrology and kitchen magic and then all these other kinds of things into it, and we lose track of like those basic four elements.
Oh, well, but they're everywhere. And that was very much my portal. I came into the magical arts through astrology and divination and folk magic. That was my portal into it. And of course, astrology, you do have, 12 signs divided to four elements. So, we are elemental. I mean, I can say that my chart has quite a bit of water and no air. And that, is, there's a lot about me right there. But I mean, I speak to people, I have good friends who have no earth in their chart or know something else in their chart, or a lot of fire in their chart. And if you really pay attention, you can sort of see these elemental energies within the zodiac and the signs.
It's absolutely fascinating. I'm a sun sign, water sign, but then that is like my only one. And then when you look like further into my chart, it's so heavy earth that like that makes a lot of sense like for my personality.
Yeah, when you start to look at it and you start to think about, what do so these cards, the Magic Spells Oracle, four suits, and then there are two balancing cards. And for example, for myself, I have no planets and air signs, but I do have a rising sign and an air sign. It's my balance. It's the equivalent of a balancing card. And so sometimes when you find yourself in a situation, what element, is lacking? It's not just what we have, but what are we missing? A drought, not enough water. Um, fire, a forest fire, not enough water. Um, I remember I saw I was living at the just outside New York City. I had just come back to the East Coast on September 11th, and I saw the second tower come down. I was watching television, and I remember just wishing it would rain. Everything was on fire, and wishing, and it was a beautiful day. It was a sunny, beautiful day, and just wishing, it would rain. Like, why can't we have a storm now?
And yeah, I do remember that, the bright blue skies and everything.
Right? Beautiful.
So,
And unfortunately, a terrible day to have a beautiful day.
yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened because it was so beautiful,
Yeah,
clear skies.
yeah.
So for anyone who is not familiar, I think maybe my audience is a little more familiar with tarot than with oracle.
Hmm.
So for a beginner, would this be a good deck to pick up and figure out what an oracle
Yeah,
deck even is?
yeah. It is a good. I mean, an oracle deck. And I say this is I am a bit of a rule breaker. If you read 5,000, if you get a tarot deck, there are things people expect to do with it. And if you get a Lenormand deck, there are things you expect to do with it. But 5,000 spells is full of spells that incorporate tarot cards as tools. You're not reading them necessarily. You're working with their energy to put in a candle spell, but that might be maybe a little bit subversive. Oracle decks don't really fall into. There are a lot of different oracle decks, and they're very free. You can kind of do what you want with them. What a lot of people do is use them as an oracle. You could pull a card a day or a week, or whatever is, on special occasions, Sabbaths, whatever it is that suits you, and take the resulting card as an oracle. But you can also, in this particular deck, you can use it for spreads. And there is a book, because not all oracle decks have books. There is a book that will explain how the deck works, how the elements interplay with each other, because it's very rare. Even though I have four suits that are divided into, here's a fire card and here's a water card or an earth card, there's a lot of interplay between them. You know, candle spells are associated with fire, as they are in this deck, but the fire is the flame. The Your candle itself is probably wax, and that's earth. You may have it in some kind of a candlestick. Some people put, candles, they float them in water, within a candlestick, the sort of tea lights. So there's all sorts of, you can play with the elements. But yeah, this is actually, it is a good beginner's deck for somebody who has never used an oracle. But also there's a lot of content in there, I think, for people who are not beginners. It's not exclusively let's use an oracle deck.
I think something really unique as well. I mean, it might come across in the title, but I know that people are listening and not looking at the deck. It's called Magic Spells Oracle. They do include spells, not on the card, but in the
Right,
book, you include spells
right,
for like all of the different cards. There's like, to
right,
me, that's
right,
just so many different ways that you
right.
could
And
make it work in your life.
and most of the material is very original. You know, this was, we came up with this deck as my editors. We just had the 20th anniversary for Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells, and the editor was looking through it and thinking, oh, what else can we, is it, this could be a diving board, a jumping off point for something else. And it's they're mostly original new spells. If you're not familiar with spell casting, there's a little catch up in there that'll teach you how to do it. Uh, it's not a huge book, and it, but but I think there's sufficient in there for it to be usable and viable for someone, regardless of their level of experience.
Yeah, that's I agree. Having looked at it,
It
I
was
do
just
think
published. It's just been
yes.
published, so it's just sort of coming out to the world.
I know, and I think that you're going to get a lot of great feedback on it
I
as
hope so.
as it makes its way in the world, because I do
I hope
think
so.
that like just pulling the card in general, like you think that it's very beautiful imagery to look at, and you do have some like words on the front, so people can immediately grasp a meaning
Well,
like as soon as they see it, but then you can go to the book for like for a specific spell for that.
I know, and the editors know that people buy decks, whether they're oracle decks or any other kind of a divinatory deck, and often don't read the book at all.
Yes.
And so, um, it is intuitive, but also they did put some words in there for especially for people who have not read the book, just to give you some direction, some guidance. But of course, any kind of card or divination is very personal. So, I encourage people to go with, what does your heart tell you when you look at a card? How do you feel? What do you think of? Because what is significant in one way to one person might be significant in another way to another person. I
Yeah,
try to keep it a little loose like that.
I like that, and but I am one who like reads all of the books, so I like
Yeah,
having
me too.
the guidebook as well because it gives me, more insight, more like little details. So that's always it's fun for me to read those particular things. Do you have a favorite card? And all 36 of them are going to be your baby, but do you have any particular
Oh,
favorites?
it's hard for me to say that because I did work, it's my deck, and I didn't really, there's really nothing in there that I dislike.
You love
I
them
love
all.
I love the mermaid card because I love mermaids. I love the scarab. I love, all that, the phoenix. That's very personal to me. Um, there's 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 really nothing there that I don't like. So, when I'm looking at a deck maybe by somebody else, I can say, oh, well, this is my favorite card and I don't like that one. But 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 I like all of them. And my favorite on one day might not be my favorite on another day,
Yeah. I can see
depending
how
on
that,
my mood.
when it's really calling to you and what you need at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
The very first one that I pulled and continues to be my favorite is the bat. I love
Oh,
that little
yeah.
bat face.
I love bats.
I love bats too. They're so fascinating. They're so cute. You see them up close, their little faces are just adorable. And I was like, oh, this is such a great card to get like for October. I was very happy.
Yeah, no, I love bats. I love bats, and I have bat jewelry and bat artwork. So yeah, no, and the creatures of the night, and I'm a creature of the night too.
Maybe that's why it popped out to me and called out to me. But yeah, I think that I would love listeners if you grab this deck. Do let us know in the comments which card you
I
love
would love to
or
know.
which one you pull first. I would love to know.
Absolutely, I would love to know.
I think that's always like fascinating how a deck presents itself to a new person, a new owner, and what
You
card comes
know,
up first is always so interesting to me.
I always pre-order a copy of my own work. Like I want to I want to know what it feels like for it to arrive in the mail, and and then I'll open it and I'll pull. The first card I pulled was the lantern card,
Oh,
which I really liked because to me the lantern is illumination, and I hope this deck brings illumination. It was what we were hoping to do with it. And it also reminds me of the Hermit card in the tarot. And the act of, I mean, we're here discussing this now, but when you're creating something, whether it's a book or a deck, there are just sort of long periods of solitude. You're just sitting there trying to perfect something in your mind. Not that anything's ever perfect, but to have a vision. And so I thought it was a little bit of a my hopes, but also my reality in the creation. So I think the deck works, and that is I like cards, and I have cards that I think are just beautiful. Um, and I like to have them, and I like to look at them, but they don't necessarily. I am a professional reader. I mean, this is something that I do, and I have been for decades. And so there are decks that are aesthetically beautiful, but they don't work. And there are decks that they work. I used to work on a psychic hotline. And let me tell you that Rider Waite Smith, it is so. That's my old reliable. You could always get a good reading from that. And I think this deck works, this Magic Spell Oracle. I think it works on different levels. It works as a divination tool. It works as a daily oracle. It works as a magical aid, a magical tool, a little bit of, magical instruction in a very accessible way. And it works on all these levels, and that makes me very happy.
I agree. I have had it working, so I do feel that, and I understand what you mean about that energy. I do feel like when it comes, I have a lot of luck and success with Oracle decks. When it comes to tarot, my very first deck I ever got is the one that works the best for me.
Really?
For some reason, I have a lot of loyalty to that deck for some reason.
What was it?
It is the illumination. It's like I'm trying to think of what the official title for it is, but it's like a holographic, like pink and
Oh,
purple
wow.
one. And it's really beautiful and I love it. I have to find what the exact name of it is, but that one it always works the best for me. I don't, I don't know what it is.
Well, just sometimes that's what happens. My first deck was the BOTA, the BOTA, which is not, well, it is similar and dissimilar from the Rider Waite Smith. And I love that deck. And I work with a lot of decks. I love, the Halloween Tarot, Kipling West. Um, I love, I was very, very honored and blessed to have worked on the Wiser Tarot, which is essentially Pamela Coleman Smith's art, but with recolored, which is not an unusual thing to do. There are a lot of different, the different versions where I think there's a black and gold version. There's all kinds of people playing with the Rider Waite Smith, and I think that I was so glad to have the opportunity to work on that.
I know it's amazing to look at all that you have like accomplished and published on your own, but then to also know that you're an editor as well. That just you must work constantly. Like I don't
I
understand.
do.
Do you?
I owe so many people emails. It's not funny, but I do. I work pretty constantly. But that I have my son in the sixth house, and Saturn is the ruler of my chart, so I do work constantly. But I'm really lucky because a lot of people work constantly at things they hate doing, and I work constantly with people I love and admire, and and with things that I love, doing things that I love. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah, well, what more can you ask for? Is to
Right,
have great people to work with
right,
and to enjoy
right,
what you do. But I
right,
always
right.
I always think that because I I have been more so like paying attention to uh, editors on books and things, and just like learning more about like the publishing in general. And every time I see your name come up, I'm like, how do you have the time?
It's my job. It's my day job, you know?
That's just amazing. I feel like you're just putting like that's so much energy from yourself to
I
put out.
love it. I love books, and I love the magical world, and I love bringing books into this world, and sometimes they're my books, and sometimes I'm a midwife for other people's books.
That's such a good way to phrase that. I love that.
Yeah, and it is like we birth these books, and sometimes, people have these. I'm working on a new edition of a Rachel Pollack book right now that was published 40 years ago originally. And so sometimes these works just sort of present themselves like, here it is. And now how we're going to create a new book and get a new forward and do all these things. And sometimes I get to work with authors or deck creators at the inception. They have something in their head, but maybe it isn't fully formed yet, and that's very exciting.
Oh, I bet that must be amazing to watch it come to life like that. And speaking of, do you have any advice for beginners, sort of like in this community, that have created something like whether that's, an Oracle deck or not, have created something that they like want to share, but feel really overwhelmed and scared about putting themselves out there like that?
Authors and maybe artists in general, creators are very, very brave people. We I am old enough to remember a time when people were more encouraging, in the metaphysical world at least, more encouraging of each other. And I mean, we can't lie. It's genuinely, um, people are very critical. And now people sometimes read to be critical. I'm going to read this to see what I don't like. And I'm going to tell everybody. And that is, I mean, first of all, it's not a very supportive thing to do. You should look for what you feel positively about rather than, I don't know, tearing somebody down who all they did was create a deck. And I'm not talking about where there's someone has done something hateful, but people have different taste. um I think this is a magical thing. Everything that is in the world has a power, whether it's a crystal, a plant, anything occurring naturally. And this is explored more in my book, Pure Magic. But which is, if you're not, that's a course in spellcasting. If you want to learn, it's a practical guide to how to be a spellcaster. But everything in the universe has its power and its place, and we're all holding each other together, including all of us, including you, dear nervous creator. You too have a power. I there are two if you have created something or would like to create something, you should think of I don't use that term midwife casually. That is coming out of your brains and your bones and your blood and your thoughts, and it's like a child, and you should treat this like a precious child. Don't don't just give it away because somebody else will take it and do what they will with it. And don't you have to be firm in your vision, because everybody these days has an opinion. And so somebody might tell you, I mean, I can't tell you how many I get submissions, and they'll tell me, well, I'm going to give it to you, but it's not really very good, and my best friend told me I should change this. And it's great. It's great. You have to find, there are two ways to publish: either to find a publisher or to do it yourself. And doing it yourself, there are ways, there's nothing wrong with self-publishing, and you will have more control, although it's a hard, difficult thing to do. But that doesn't mean putting it up. Like, don't just put it online. Take some control, get an editor. There are, freelance editors. Don't just have like a friend do it. Find somebody who's qualified. Maybe you have a friend who's an editor, and that's great. But find somebody who is qualified to edit for you. Sometimes a neutral person is best. And find out the right way to self-publish. Or go to a publisher. Come to Weiser, come to Llewellyn, go to Inner Traditions, there's so many, Crossed Crow, there are multiple publishing houses that specialize in this kind of a material. Please don't show anybody your entire body of work until they have sent you a contract and at least a little bit of money. There is not a lot of money in metaphysics, but that transaction of giving you something means they're serious. There's magic in transactions. And for me, for example, at Weiser, if you were to submit a manuscript, I don't need to see more than 2 chapters. A table of contents and 2 chapters. I don't want to see the whole thing. And I am very honest, and I have never heard I have never heard complaints about Weiser, but I have heard complaints about other situations where sometimes you submit something and then somebody else, another author comes out with a similar book, and it's like devastating because you'll never know. So, hold on to your work, guard your work. It is a treasure. Your soul is in that, and it should be. Like, don't write. There's so much out there right now, and so much of it is superficial. Write something that you think you really want to write. It's your legacy. What we were Steph, what we were talking about before, that books are forever in the way that we print now. So this is your legacy. Your grandchildren may be reading this. I don't know if that's helpful.
That's really helpful. That is, honestly, so much excellent advice in there, for witchy creators, but just for life in general.
Listen, we are in a renaissance. We are in a renaissance. There have been how many millennia you could not, you and I could not have had this open conversation on the airwaves, or the whatever these waves are, the virtual waves, when my sister was born.
No.
So we're not talking 600 or 2,000 years ago. Until the 1950s, you could not openly promote witchcraft like this. For various reasons, in Western countries, it was against the law. There is a reason that authors like Dion Fortune and Gerald Gardner wrote their first works as novels, because they could not write, it was against the law to write nonfiction books promoting witchcraft. So they would write, and Dion Fortune writes wonderful novels, these novels where you would have to read between the lines and figure out what the ritual was. Or it would have to be written sort of in this very academic, anthropological way of what people did. But you couldn't say, hey, we can do this too.
Right.
It is a rare time. It is a time when there's and even when I was growing up, there weren't that many books. There weren't that many decks. You read what was there, and now there's almost this overwhelming amount of material. And that's why I say write something interesting and significant to you. Like I edit a couple tarot books every season, and I am always looking for something that's unique and that's different. I worked with Nancy Hendrickson on Ancestral Tarot, and that was I think a really revolutionary book. I am working with Eliza Einhorn now on Tarot of the Unconscious. Jenna Matlin has a great book coming up soon. Books that are kind of pushing the envelope. So there are so many beginner books out there. so many let me tell you what the cards mean. Let's you know, we kind of have to stand up and I mean, I don't know another way to say it, but push that envelope, bring new insights. And if you can do that, there's a need for that. It's important.
That is all such fantastic advice for everyone listening. I very much appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking the time to appear on Witch Wednesdays again. It was lovely to chat with you again
Oh,
and to chat
so
all
glad
about
that you
your.
invited me. Thank you.
I love having you here. I love chatting about your new Oracle deck and congratulations on that big change
Thank
for you
you.
this year. Having decks out, that's so much fun.
Yeah, look,
New
here I am.
things.
So it's never too late. You can do something new
I love it.
and
Listeners,
unexpected.
as
Be
always,
good.
I am going to have everything linked below and over in the show notes at witchwednesdays.com for you so you can find everything easily, find the Oracle deck, find everything that Judika has to offer. All of that will be in the show notes as always. And that is everything that I have for you this week. I will see you all next week.
Need even more witchcraft in your life? Subscribe to Witch Wednesdays on Patreon and YouTube for all types of exclusive bonus content like spells, recipes, book reviews, and more, or even order personalized tarot readings and spells. Be sure to follow on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast. And you can find all these links and more at witchwednesdays.com.